I used to be her strength. Now I'm her fear.
The sticky note on my fridge might as well have been a death certificate. Pink paper, Ashley's perfect handwriting, and 23 words that ended 12 years of marriage. Gone for 2 weeks with Chase. Needs space. Please respect my journey. Ashley? I stood there in my boxers and yesterday's work shirt, holding my morning coffee like it was the last normal thing in my world. Which, as it turned out, it was. My name's Jake Morrison, and I fix cars for a living. Not glamorous, but honest work. My hands are permanently stained with motor oil, my back aches from crawling under engines, and I smell like WWD-40 more often than cologne. Ashley used to say she loved that about me, the realness of it all. That was before she discovered yoga pants, green smoothies, and apparently personal trainers named Chase. The house felt different now, like a museum exhibit titled Failed Marriage American Suburb Edition. Everything was too clean, too staged. Ashley's vanilla candles still burned in the living room, their sickly sweet scent mixing with the ghost of her expensive perfume. The security cameras she'd insisted on installing last month suddenly made sense. She'd been planning this. I walked to the kitchen window and looked out at our manicured lawn. Mrs. Delaney from next door was already peeking through her blinds. In a town like Millfield, news traveled faster than gossip at a church potluck. By noon, everyone would know Ashley Morrison had left her mechanic husband for a younger man. The burner phone was hidden behind the coffee filters. Amateur hour, really. I almost laughed at how cliché it was. The cheating wife's secret device, like something out of a bad movie. But the messages inside were real enough. 3 months of explicit texts, selfies in my favorite flannel shirt, and hotel bookings that made my stomach turn. Chase Brennan, 28 years old, personal trainer at Elite Fitness, drives a leased Tesla, and apparently specializes in helping married women discover their inner goddess. His Instagram was a parade of shirtless gym selfies and motivational quotes about living your truth. The kind of guy who used literally in every sentence and thought protein powder was a food group. I scrolled through their conversations, each message a fresh knife twist. Ashley, my practical wife who used to mock social media influencers, was sending heart-eye emojis and planning weekend getaways. The woman who once said Chase looked like a Ken doll with daddy issues was now calling him her soulmate. My phone buzzed. A text from my business partner, Mike. Saw Ashley's car at the airport. Everything okay? I typed back, never better. She's on a journey of self-discovery. What kind of journey? The kind that ends with divorce papers. The house phone rang, Ashley's voice on the answering machine, breathless and panicked. Jake, I know you're there. Pick up. We need to talk about this like adults. I'm not the villain here. We both know this marriage has been dead for years. I just had the courage to do something about it. Courage. That's what she called abandoning your husband via post-it note. I poured another coffee and sat at our kitchen table. The same table where we'd planned our future, discussed having kids, argued about money. Now it felt like evidence of my own stupidity. How long had she been planning this? How many of our friends knew? How many pitying looks had I missed? The garage was my sanctuary, always had been. I owned Morrison's Auto Repair on the edge of town, a place where things made sense. Engines had problems, you diagnosed them, you fixed them. No hidden meanings, no emotional manipulation, just honest work with predictable outcomes. Mike was waiting for me when I arrived, along with Tommy and Rick, my other mechanics. 3 guys who'd been with me for years, who understood that loyalty meant something. Boss, Mike said, not quite meeting my eyes. Heard about Ashley. News travels fast. Mrs. Patterson was in for an oil change this morning. Said she saw Ashley loading suitcases at 5 a.m. Of course she did. Mrs. Patterson probably had a police scanner and a direct line to the town newspaper. So what's the plan? Tommy asked. I looked at my guys, Mike with his beer gut and endless supply of bad jokes, Tommy who could diagnose any engine problem by sound alone, Rick who was putting 2 kids through college on a mechanic's salary. These were my people, not Ashley's wine and cheese crowd, who always made me feel like the hired help at my own dinner parties. The plan is we work, I said. Same as always. But even as I said it, I knew everything had changed. Ashley had made her choice, and now I had to make mine. The question was, did I want to be the victim in this story, or did I want to be something else entirely? By lunch, my phone had 17 missed calls from Ashley. I deleted them all without listening. The week-to-week rental above Frankie's boxing gym smelled like decades of sweat, broken dreams, and industrial disinfectant. The walls were thin enough that I could hear every grunt, every punch hitting the heavy bag, every motivational speech Frankie gave to kids who thought fighting was their ticket out of nowhere. It was perfect. Ashley had been back from her journey for 3 days, and the panic in her voice messages was escalating beautifully. Turns out Chase had been delayed at customs, something about irregularities in his passport. Amazing how a simple phone call to my buddy Derek, who worked border security, could create such inconvenient random inspections. I was nursing my morning coffee when Mrs. Delaney knocked on my door. She was holding a casserole dish and wearing the expression of someone who'd won the neighborhood gossip lottery. "Jake, honey, I brought you some tuna noodle casserole. Figured you might need some home cooking." Translation: I want details, and I'm bribing you with carbs. That's kind of you, Mrs. Delaney. Such a shame about Ashley. Though between you and me, I always thought she was too good for her britches. Remember when she complained about my wind chimes being too loud? Wind chimes! Like the sound of gentle music was somehow offensive to her delicate sensibilities. I let her talk. In a town like Millfield, Mrs. Delaney was better than a PR firm. By evening, her version of events would reach every coffee shop, hair salon, and church basement in a 10-mile radius. Of course, some folks are saying you drove her to it, she continued, watching my face carefully. Working all the time, never taking her anywhere fancy. But I told Marge Hendricks, I said, that man worked his fingers to the bone for that woman, and this is how she repays him. I appreciate the support, Mrs. Delaney. You know what you need? A good lawyer. My nephew Danny handles divorces, took his own wife to the cleaners after she ran off with her Pilates instructor. Got the house, the car, and half her retirement fund. I filed that information away. I'll keep that in mind. After she left, I walked downstairs to the gym. Frankie was working with a teenage kid on footwork, calling out combinations in his gravelly voice. Frankie had been a semi-pro boxer back in the day before a detached retina ended his career. Now, he trained kids and middle-aged guys like me who needed to hit something. "Morrison," he called out. "You look like heck. Feel worse. Good. Anger makes you focused. Get changed." 20 minutes later, I was working the heavy bag, letting 12 years of frustration flow through my fists. Each punch was a memory, Ashley rolling her eyes when I tracked mud through the house. Ashley forgetting to mention dinner parties until the last minute. Ashley introducing me as just my husband, like I was a piece of furniture that happened to talk. "Your wife called here," Frankie said during my water break. "What?" "This morning, wanted to know if you were acting erratically. Told her you seemed pretty rational to me, considering..." The audacity was breathtaking. Ashley was worried about my mental state? The woman who'd abandoned her marriage for an Instagram influencer with the personality of a protein shake? What did you tell her? That if she was concerned about your well-being, maybe she shouldn't have run off with some muscled-up pretty boy. I laughed, despite myself. Bet she loved that. Hung up on me, but she'll be back. Women like that, they can't stand not being in control of the narrative. Frankie was right. Ashley had spent our entire marriage managing my image, turning me into her version of an acceptable husband. The blue-collar guy with a heart of gold, rough around the edges, but trainable. A project she could show off to her friends. Look how I've domesticated him. Well, the project was officially canceled. I was walking back to my apartment when I saw it. My truck, parked in the gym's lot, with "Not enough man" spray-painted across the hood in bright red letters. The rage hit me like a physical force. This wasn't just vandalism, it was a message. Someone wanted me to know exactly how they saw me. The inadequate husband who couldn't keep his wife satisfied. I called the police, more for the report than any hope of justice. Officer Martinez showed up 20 minutes later, took photos, asked the obvious questions. Did I have any enemies? Anyone who might want to hurt me? My wife left me for her personal trainer, I said. Take your pick. Martinez nodded sympathetically. He'd been through his own divorce 2 years ago, another casualty of Millfield's relationship graveyard. Could be random, he said, but his tone suggested otherwise. You might want to install some security cameras. And Jake, watch your back. Domestic situations can get ugly fast. After he left, I stood looking at my defaced truck. The paint job would cost $800 I didn't have, money that would have to come out of the business. But the real cost was the humiliation. Everyone who saw this truck would know exactly what it meant. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. How does it feel to lose everything? I stared at the message, my mind racing. Ashley wouldn't text from a random number. She was too direct for games. Chase was too stupid for psychological warfare. So who was pulling the strings? I saved the number and headed upstairs. Time to stop playing defense. The answer came at 3 a.m. when I couldn't sleep and decided to scroll through Ashley's social media like a masochist with a smartphone. Her Instagram was a carefully curated highlight reel of our marriage. Romantic dinners, vacation photos, anniversary celebrations. The comment section was a goldmine of fake sympathy and barely concealed gossip. But it was her best friend Vanessa's comment that stopped me cold. Sometimes we have to break a few hearts to find our true selves. So proud of you for being brave enough to follow your bliss. Vanessa Chen, Ashley's college roommate, maid of honor at our wedding, and the woman who'd been whispering poison in my wife's ear for months. I should have seen it coming. Vanessa had never liked me, had always treated me like Ashley's unfortunate mistake. At every dinner party, every social gathering, she'd make little comments about Ashley settling or wasting her potential. I pulled up Vanessa's profile and started digging. What I found was interesting. Vanessa's own marriage had imploded 6 months ago. Her husband David had left her for a coworker, taking half their assets and leaving her bitter, broke, and looking for someone to blame. Misery loves company, and apparently it also loves recruiting. The next morning, I drove to Elite Fitness. Chase's Tesla was parked in the lot, gleaming white with vanity plates that read, Fit God. I sat in my vandalized truck and watched him through the gym's floor-to-ceiling windows. He was training a middle-aged woman standing too close, touching her shoulders while she did squats. The same routine he'd used on Ashley. I waited until his session ended, then followed him to the smoothie bar. Chase was everything I wasn't. Tall, tan, with the kind of sculpted muscles that came from having exercise as your full-time job. He ordered something called a warrior goddess bowl and flirted with the teenage cashier while he waited. Chase Brennan, I said, walking up behind him. He turned and I saw the moment recognition hit. His confident smile faltered, replaced by something between guilt and fear. Jake, hey man, look, about Ashley. Relax, I said. I'm not here to fight you. Actually, I wanted to thank you. Thank me? For showing me who my wife really is. 12 years I wasted on someone who could throw away a marriage for a few Instagram-worthy moments. You did me a favor. Chase's confusion was almost comical. This wasn't the script he'd prepared for. The angry husband, the dramatic confrontation, the chance to play the romantic hero stealing the neglected wife from her brutish husband. That's surprisingly mature of you, he said. I'm a mature guy. In fact, I'm so grateful. I want to make sure everyone knows how happy you two are. Mind if I take a picture? For Ashley's social media. Before he could object, I snapped a photo of him holding his ridiculous smoothie bowl, looking confused and slightly panicked. The caption I posted on Ashley's Instagram later would read, When you find your soulmate, every moment is a celebration. #blessed and grateful, #new beginnings. The comments started immediately. Ashley's professional contacts, her family, her book club friends, all seeing her husband publicly celebrating her affair. The humiliation was perfect, but I was just getting started. That afternoon, I paid a visit to Danny Hendricks, Mrs. Delaney's nephew and Millfield's most aggressive divorce attorney. His office was above the hardware store, decorated with hunting trophies and law degrees from schools I'd never heard of. Mrs. Delaney says you need a good lawyer, Danny said, leaning back in his chair. She also says your wife's been stepping out with some pretty boy trainer. That's the situation. How long you been married? 12 years. Kids? No. Property? Houses in both names. I own my business outright. Danny smiled, his eyes gleaming with predatory interest. Any proof of the affair? I showed him the burner phone, the text messages, the hotel receipts. His smile got wider. This is good. Real good. In this state, adultery affects asset division. We can make this very expensive for her. I don't want her money, I said. I want something else. What's that? I want her to understand what it feels like to lose everything. Danny's expression shifted from professional to interested. What did you have in mind? I told him about Vanessa, about the social media campaign, about my suspicions that this whole thing was orchestrated. Danny listened, taking notes, occasionally nodding. You know, he said when I finished, most guys in your situation just want to get it over with. Take their lumps, split the assets, move on. But you're thinking strategically. I'm a problem solver, always have been. Good, because I've got some ideas that might interest you. We talked for another hour, laying out a plan that was perfectly legal and absolutely devastating. By the time I left Danny's office, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Hope. My phone rang as I was walking back to the truck. Ashley's number. Jake, we need to talk. Do we? That post on my Instagram, you can't do things like that. It's humiliating. Humiliating for who? For both of us. People are asking questions. My boss saw it. My mother called crying. Sounds like a personal problem. Jake, please, I know you're hurt, but we're adults. We can handle this maturely. Like leaving a note on the fridge? That kind of maturity? Silence. Then, I want to come get my things. When? Tonight, 7 o'clock. I'll make sure the door's unlocked. After I hung up, I called Mike at the shop. I need a favor, I said. And bring Tommy and Rick. We're going to have some fun. Ashley arrived at 7 sharp, driving her silver BMW like she was approaching a crime scene. She'd brought backup. Vanessa sat in the passenger seat, probably there to provide moral support and witness protection. I watched from my apartment window as they sat in the car for 5 minutes, having what looked like an intense conversation. Finally, they got out. Ashley moved toward the house with the cautious steps of someone entering enemy territory. Vanessa hung back by the car, phone in hand, ready to call for help if needed. What they didn't know was that I'd spent the afternoon preparing for this moment. I'd changed the locks, as was my legal right according to Danny. I'd also installed a few discreet recording devices, perfectly legal in my own home. Most importantly, I'd invited an audience. Mike, Tommy, and Rick were waiting in the garage, supposedly working late on an engine rebuild. Mrs. Delaney was conveniently watering her garden. Even Officer Martinez happened to be patrolling the neighborhood, thanks to a call about suspicious activity I'd made an hour earlier. Ashley knocked on the front door. I took my time answering. Jake, she said, trying to smile. Thank you for this. I know it's awkward. Come on in, both of you. Vanessa followed Ashley inside, her eyes darting around like she expected an ambush. She was a thin woman with sharp features and the kind of aggressive blonde highlights that screamed recently divorced and angry about it. I just need to get some clothes and personal items, Ashley said. I won't take anything that's not mine. Take whatever you want, I said. I'm not attached to any of it anymore. She looked surprised by my reasonableness. Ashley had always been able to read my moods, but apparently 12 years of marriage hadn't prepared her for this version of me. Calm, detached, almost friendly. They went upstairs to the bedroom. I could hear Ashley opening drawers, Vanessa whispering advice. After 20 minutes, they came back down with 2 suitcases and a box of books. That's it, I asked. For now, I'll come back for the rest later, when we've had time to process everything. Process everything, I repeated. Is that what we're calling it? Jake, I know you're angry. I'm not angry, Ashley. I'm grateful. Vanessa stepped forward. Grateful? For the wake-up call? For showing me what my life really was? For giving me the chance to start over with someone who actually wants to be with me? Someone? Ashley's voice was sharp. You're already seeing someone? Let's just say I'm exploring my options. Turns out there are plenty of women who appreciate a man with a steady job and functional emotional intelligence. It was a lie, but a useful one. I could see it hitting Ashley exactly where I'd aimed. Her ego, her sense of control, her assumption that I'd be waiting around indefinitely while she found herself. Who? Vanessa demanded. That's really none of your business, is it? I looked directly at Vanessa. Though I appreciate all the advice you gave Ashley. Really helped clarify things. Vanessa's face went pale. What advice? Oh, you know, about following her bliss, about not settling, about how she deserved better than a blue-collar husband who'd never be good enough for her social circle. I never said, didn't you? Ashley tells me everything, used to anyway. She told me how you encouraged her to join that gym, how you said she should explore her options, how you helped her realize she was wasting her life with someone beneath her station. Ashley was looking back and forth between us, confusion replacing her careful composure. Vanessa? What is he talking about? Nothing. He's trying to cause problems between us. Am I? I pulled out my phone and opened the voice recording app. Because I have some interesting voicemails from someone who sounds exactly like you, Vanessa. Want to hear them? I didn't actually have any voicemails from Vanessa, but the bluff worked. Her face crumpled, and I knew I'd hit the target. You've been manipulating my wife, I continued, feeding her dissatisfaction, encouraging her to throw away 12 years of marriage because you couldn't stand seeing her happy when your own life fell apart. That's not... Your husband left you 6 months ago, took half your money, left you bitter and alone. So you decided Ashley should join you in the misery club. Misery loves company, right, Vanessa? Ashley was staring at her best friend with growing horror. Vanessa, is this true? Ashley, don't listen to him. He's trying to manipulate you. Like you manipulated her, I pressed. Like you encouraged her to have an affair because you couldn't stand seeing her in a stable marriage when yours had failed? Stop, Vanessa said, but her voice was weak. You know what the really sick part is? I continued. You didn't care about Ashley's happiness. You just wanted to drag her down to your level, and you succeeded. Congratulations. Ashley sat down heavily on the couch, her face white. Vanessa, please tell me this isn't true. Vanessa looked around the room like a trapped animal, then made her choice. Ashley, you were wasting your life with him. You said so yourself. You felt trapped, unfulfilled. I just helped you see what was already there. By encouraging her to have an affair? By encouraging her to live authentically? With a personal trainer who's cheating on her with half his clients? That got Ashley's attention. What? I pulled up Chase's Instagram on my phone, scrolled to a photo from 2 days ago. That's Chase with Miranda Peterson. Yesterday it was Sarah Williams. Today it's someone named Brittany. Your soulmate is running a rotation, Ashley. You're not his girlfriend. You're Tuesday and Thursday. Ashley grabbed my phone, scrolling through the photos. Her face went through a series of expressions. Denial, recognition, humiliation, rage. He told me I was special, she whispered. You are special, Vanessa said desperately. This doesn't change anything. It changes everything, Ashley exploded. You ruined my marriage for this? For a man who's treating me like just another client? Your marriage was already over. No, it wasn't. It was work. It was routine, but it wasn't over. And now it is, because I listened to you. The fight that followed was everything I'd hoped for and more. 12 years of friendship dissolved in accusations and recriminations, with me as the silent observer taking mental notes. By the time Vanessa stormed out, Ashley was crying, and I was almost feeling sorry for her. Almost. Jake, she said through her tears, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. You didn't want to know, I corrected. There's a difference. Can we fix this? Can we try again? I looked at my wife, really looked at her. She was beautiful, successful, intelligent. She was also selfish, easily manipulated, and had just proven she was willing to throw away everything we'd built together based on the advice of a bitter friend and the attention of a pretty boy with no substance. No, I said. We can't. Jake, please. The papers will be filed tomorrow. Danny Hendricks is representing me. You should get your own lawyer. You're really going to divorce me over this? Ashley, you divorced me the minute you walked out that door with Chase. I'm just making it official. After she left, I sat in my empty house and felt something I hadn't expected. Relief. The worst was over. Now came the fun part. The high school reunion was Ashley's idea of heck made manifest. A gymnasium full of people she'd spent 20 years trying to impress, all gathered to judge each other's life choices. She'd been dreading it for months, which made it the perfect venue for my final act. It had been 6 weeks since our confrontation. The divorce papers were filed, the assets were being divided, and Ashley's life was unraveling with mathematical precision. Chase had dumped her the day after I'd shown her his Instagram rotation. Her job at the PR firm was in jeopardy after her personal drama started affecting her professional relationships. Vanessa had moved to Phoenix, cutting all ties with Millfield and taking her poisonous influence with her. I, meanwhile, was thriving. The shop was busier than ever. Apparently, being the wronged husband in a small-town scandal was good for business. I'd lost 15 pounds working out at Frankie's gym. I'd even been on a few dates, nothing serious, but enough to remind me that there were women in the world who didn't see me as a project to be improved. The reunion was being held at Millfield High, in the same gymnasium where Ashley had been homecoming queen, and I'd been the guy who fixed the sound system for school plays. The irony wasn't lost on me. I arrived fashionably late, wearing a new suit that actually fit and feeling better than I had in years. The gym was decorated with balloons and streamers in the school colors, round tables scattered across the basketball court, a DJ playing hits from our graduation year. Ashley was already there, standing near the punch bowl with a forced smile and desperate eyes. She'd lost weight too, but not in a healthy way. Stress and heartbreak had carved hollows in her cheeks and put shadows under her eyes. She was wearing a red dress that probably cost more than my truck payment. Armor against the judgment she knew was coming. Jake? Karen Murphy, our class president, appeared at my elbow. You look fantastic. I heard about you and Ashley. I'm so sorry. Don't be, I said. Best thing that ever happened to me. Karen's eyes widened. This wasn't the response she'd expected from the wronged husband. Really? Really? Turns out there's life after marriage to the wrong person. Word spread quickly through the room. Jake Morrison wasn't broken, wasn't bitter, wasn't hiding at home licking his wounds. He was confident, successful, and apparently doing just fine without his cheating wife. I worked the room like a politician, catching up with old classmates, telling edited versions of my story that cast me as the hero rather than the victim. The narrative was simple. I'd married young, worked hard to build a life, and discovered my wife wasn't the person I thought she was. Now, I was free to find someone who actually appreciated me. Meanwhile, Ashley was getting the other treatment, the sympathetic head tilts, the carefully worded questions, the subtle judgment disguised as concern. Everyone knew about Chase, about the affair, about how she'd left her husband via post-it note. In a room full of people who'd known us both since we were teenagers, there was no hiding from the truth. The DJ called for attention around 9 o'clock. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a special request from one of our classmates. Jake Morrison has something he'd like to share. I hadn't requested anything, but I wasn't about to waste the opportunity. I walked to the microphone, looked out at the sea of faces, and found Ashley's eyes across the room. Thank you all for being here tonight, I began. It's great to see everyone, to catch up on old times and see how far we've all come. Polite applause. Some of you know that Ashley and I are getting divorced. It's been a difficult time, but also a learning experience. I've learned a lot about loyalty, about friendship, about the difference between the person you marry and the person they become. The room was dead silent now. Ashley looked like she wanted to disappear. I've learned that some people will stick with you through anything, and others will abandon you the minute something better comes along. I've learned that trust, once broken, can't be repaired with apologies and promises. Most importantly, I've learned that sometimes the worst thing that happens to you turns out to be the best thing. I paused, letting that sink in. Ashley leaving me for her personal trainer was devastating at first, but it also freed me from a marriage that had become a performance, a life that was more about appearances than happiness. It showed me who my real friends were, and it gave me the chance to start over with someone who actually wants to be with me. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Ashley's face was white. So I want to thank Ashley, publicly, for having the courage to show me who she really is, for teaching me that sometimes you have to lose everything to realize you didn't have anything worth keeping in the first place. The silence was deafening. I handed the microphone back to the DJ and walked off the makeshift stage, leaving Ashley to deal with the aftermath. She found me in the parking lot 20 minutes later, tears streaming down her face. "How could you do that to me?" she demanded. "In front of everyone we know? Do what? Tell the truth? Humiliate me? You humiliated yourself, Ashley. I just refuse to pretend otherwise. I made a mistake. You made a choice. You chose Vanessa's advice over our marriage. You chose Chase over me. You chose to leave via post-it note instead of having an adult conversation. Those weren't mistakes. They were decisions. I was confused. You were selfish. There's a difference." She stood there crying, and for a moment I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. "You wanted a villain, Ashley. You needed me to be the inadequate husband, the man who wasn't enough, the obstacle standing between you and your authentic life. Congratulations, you got your wish. I'm exactly the villain you made me." I got in my truck and drove away, leaving her standing in the parking lot in her expensive red dress, finally understanding what she'd lost. The next morning, I got a call from Danny. Ashley had agreed to all our terms. No contest, no alimony, clean split of assets. She just wanted it over. 6 months later, I sold the house and bought a cabin on Miller's Lake. The shop was doing better than ever. I was in the best shape of my life, and I was dating a woman named Susan who laughed at my jokes and didn't see me as a fixer-upper project. Ashley moved to Chicago, started over with a new job and a new life. I heard she was seeing someone, an accountant this time, someone stable and boring and completely unlike Chase. Maybe she'd learned something after all. As for Vanessa, I never heard from her again. Phoenix was probably far enough away to start fresh, to find new friends to manipulate and new marriages to sabotage. I kept the burner phone as a reminder, not of what I'd lost, but of what I'd gained. Sometimes the worst betrayal is also the greatest gift, showing you exactly who you're dealing with before it's too late to do something about it. They say the best revenge is living well. They're wrong. The best revenge is becoming the person your enemies forced you to be, and discovering you like that person better than who you were before. I was no longer the accommodating husband, the man who made himself smaller to make others comfortable. the guy who fixed everyone else's problems while ignoring his own. I was something new, something harder, something that wouldn't be taken advantage of again. Ashley had wanted me to be the villain in her story of self-discovery and authentic living. Instead, I became the hero of my own story, the man who refused to be destroyed by betrayal and came out stronger on the other side. She'd created a monster, all right, just not the kind she'd expected.